So that's the reason why there has been such a high failure rate, because companies haven't done that. Inherently, then you have risks and biases. It's interesting, some people don't think that AI has biases. Of course it does. It's trained on human data. I think it's a very important one because when businesses jump into implementing tools and doing different things in their business regarding AI, it's risky. You're automatically implementing new risks.
With me today, I have Amanda Jacobs. She is the founder of Ethos AI, helping businesses transform with ethical AI, AI governance, and trust mapping. And today we'll take a deep dive into how to do all these things in your business and a lot of AI questions that you might have. Hopefully, Amanda will answer as many of those as possible. Now, Amanda, how are you feeling today?
Great. I'm excited to be here to have a good
Fantastic.
conversation.
Fantastic. Well, let's get directly into it. Tell me first of all, how did you start your journey in the AI space?
So I went to school for entrepreneurship. I've been in business and startups and small businesses and medium-sized businesses for about 15 years. And in the workforce, I focused in marketing. I had a marketing agency for the last 5 years, and within that time, I saw AI slowly creep into every facet of digital marketing. You see it a lot now, specifically with content creation and generative AI. You also see it in analytics. You see it in AI-powered CRMs like High Level's one of the new big ones, right? Before it was HubSpot, Salesforce, and now you've got High Level. You've got all of these different AI tools coming at you, whether you're in marketing or anywhere else. But for me, it was in marketing. And I saw that I felt that businesses really needed help integrating this new technology into their business, not just in marketing, but on a broader scope when it came to growing businesses. And so I wanted to get into the consulting space and help businesses navigate this very new world when it comes to AI and how it's changing the business world. So I found a lot of different certifications, and I've evaluated, MIT's and IBM's and some of the universities like UT Austin Business now has AI. Well, a lot of the business schools now have AI programs in their graduate schools. And I found one that I liked for AI consulting in business specifically. A lot of it's really data science heavy, but this one is specific to helping businesses grow and implement AI from people that have been doing this for 20 years, before AI came on the market, and then they developed into AI before most others did. So I feel like I'm learning from the best, and I'm really excited to be in the space because it is so rapidly developing and a very exciting space to be in the next, 2 to 5 years. What you do with your business and what you do in regards to AI is going to make a really big impact. So it's an exciting time.
Got it. Now, you've shifted your focus more towards the implementation and helping people and businesses implement AI properly into their businesses. Now, walk me through your process. You said you have like 5 pillars of implementation. Or how does that work? How does that look like for someone that wants to implement AI into their business?
So before implementation happens, there should be strategy. It should always be strategy first and then implementation. And I think that's what a lot of businesses tend to be missing because they have all of these different AI companies and tools being thrown at them all the time, but there's no ownership yet in businesses. There isn't somebody that's specifically following AI or understands AI that is then applying that to the business goals and to their processes and workflows. That's very new for a lot of businesses to think about. So that's one of the reasons I stepped into this space, and I think the demand for that in businesses is going to start to become very clear. And it's a huge space. It's definitely should be its own job right now because of how fast AI is developing. So that strategy piece is huge. Before implementing tools, businesses really need to make sure that they understand what they're trying to do, and understand and have someone that understands one of the best ways to do that, and can safely implement things. So my company is branded specifically for ethics, and the 5 pillars that I talked about, and we'll touch on, is specific to the ethical points that should be part of your strategy and implementation. It's only one part, you know. If people see my business's Instagram page, I've got a bunch of different highlight reels because there's so many different topics and things within AI, right? You can look at what's happening in the world, you can look at what's happening in business, you can look at robotics, medical, ethics. There's all these different things to keep up with, and ethics is one of them. And I think it's a very important one because when businesses jump into implementing tools and doing different things in their business regarding AI, it's risky. You're automatically implementing new risks, and without the proper strategy or the proper understanding of how to mitigate those risks, there could be issues. You could end up doing something that takes your business down when you do necessarily need to be looking at and implementing AI to keep up as well. So, you know, you need to implement AI, but you also need to do it safely.
So if we're at the place where the CEO spends some time at research and starts to maybe talk with some of his peers and sees how they're implementing, and now he says to the board or to the team, like, hey, look, we're going to do this now. We will find one person. The person's called Amanda Jacobs. She will do the implementation for us. We have a strategy. You go through the strategy process. You identify what you want to achieve. Typically, from what I'm hearing, it's like the client-facing stuff or data analytics stuff or enrichment of data. These are kind of the first projects. Are those typically the first project that you see as well, or when you go through your 5 pillars, there's a different process?
Data is a foundation to everything. So anything you decide to do with AI, it's first going to start with data. You could have 5 different projects for implementing different aspects of AI and different processes for different departments. Say, we go through 8 different value drivers, those value drivers can be applied to every single department within your organization. And so within, say, marketing as an example, we'll talk about a marketing department. One of the value drivers might be lead generation. And there's a process or maybe many processes that are going to lead to that value driver for the business. And then when you break that down, and you decide, okay, I'm going to implement AI into this one piece of the process, part of a project just for that one implementation, the very first part is always going to be data. What kind of data are we gathering? How are we cleaning it? How are we storing it? That's step 1 for any AI project, because your AI solution is only as good as the data that you put into it, right? So the 5 frameworks is specific to ethics. Or the 5 pillars are specific to ethics. The first one is AI risk and management. And so these, as I go through these 5 pillars, this should be just kept in mind and integrated into the strategy, the overall strategy that you're doing. So this is something that is not an independent strategy. It's something that should be put into anything that you're doing with AI. An assessment, there's a lot of different assessments that businesses should do. They should do a readiness assessment, make sure that the business is ready to implement whatever it is that they're trying to implement. But for security and risk, you also should do a risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities that AI could exacerbate. So that would be number 1. And then number 2 is transparency and explainability. Trust is a really big part of a business. And you need to really be transparent about what kind of AI that you're using. And explainability is important as well, because people have a hard time understanding sometimes. And to make it simple can be very challenging, but making it simple and explainable and transparent is important. Number 3 is data privacy and security. So that is one of the points. Data privacy and security is very important, and there's a lot of different aspects you can go into with that. Cybersecurity is the main one that, if you have IT within your company or a third-party IT company, you need to make sure that whoever is running that in cybersecurity knows the very unique AI vulnerabilities and understand how to navigate that. And then Number four is accountability and governance. So accountability, who in the organization is going to be responsible for this? Do we have a governance framework to understand how to follow up with all of the different changes that are happening? So change management is something people might be hearing a lot now, because with AI projects further down the line, they might be successful up into accountability and change management. Then all of a sudden it's a problem because we don't have governance frameworks in place. We don't understand how to deal with new issues as they come up. It's an ongoing thing. It's not like a one and done. You plug something in, turn it on, and it's good, you know? So that's where most organization implementation breaks down. And then the last one is the human-centered part of the change management, making sure that what you're doing is enhancing human values and needs. And the technology should be reflective of that. Rather than just having data and numbers, you really need to be connecting that to the value that your business is driving to humans and also to the human needs within the organization. So those are the five.
Very detailed and very, I think a lot of people didn't expect that. I believe that most people think of like, sure, list us some tools. What are the tools that we need to use?
Right.
Do you hear a lot of people asking you about tools versus strategies? Do they grasp the concepts, how they should be implementing AI in their companies?
Yeah, and I think that this is reflective of the scale of the company. Enterprise level companies, they've been in this conversation for a long time. Everything that I've said is probably not new to them, most likely. Medium-sized companies are the ones that haven't really entered this conversation as much yet. They're starting to. And that's where it's really important for them because they have the larger teams and they still need to be implementing these things. And then the smaller companies are the ones that I think primarily hear about tools all the time, and really the conversation is surrounding tools. And sometimes that's okay. If you have a really, really small team, then a lot of these pieces might not be as applicable. You still should always have strategy and always really understand your objectives. But, it might be a lot easier to say, okay, well, I don't have a bunch of processes and a bunch of different departments. I really am struggling with this one problem, and this one specific tool is specialized to address this problem. And that's great. You still should go in it with strategy and risk management because, if you're using ChatGPT or whatever LLM and you don't have any kind of, privacy or security or data management background, you could introduce risks still to your company, even if it's small.
Right. When medium and small businesses are thinking of doing the AI transformation, do CEOs see a bigger picture? Do you see them focusing on revenue cutting, slashing, reducing costs, reducing workload, or they're seeing an approach where they're trying to augment the jobs of their teams?
All of the above. I think that CEOs understand the importance now. However, there's still a lot of education gaps, particularly with capabilities. So if expectations aren't set, that can lead to failure as well. Because if you're expecting immediate results, and also you want immediate results, and so you're focused on like flashy solutions and flashy parts of your business rather than less visible parts of your business, you might be focusing on the wrong problem. And you might also be, even though you're trying to implement AI, you understand its importance, you expect it to give you these crazy results when the reality is it's still a 12 to 18 month time horizon to really see driven measurable results with different implementations. And in order to even see those results, you have to be measuring things correctly. You have to measure before the implementation as well. You have to gather data before and after, and then be reading it correctly. So there's a lot of different pieces that I think when it comes to actually doing strategy and implementation that CEOs miss. So it's not as much of that they don't understand that it's important. It's just not having the education of how to properly do change management across the organization and what to expect with that, how to manage it also, who am I gonna say owns this, do we have these conversations within board meetings, or who should I talk to about this? A lot of the time CEOs don't involve their employees in the conversation early on, and so that causes a misalignment and mistrust, and then later on it's really hard to manage change when you don't have them as part of the conversation early on. So there's a lot of pieces that I don't think CEOs think about as much when it comes to actually playing this out in the organization, because it's complete transformation. It changes everything. It's like introducing computers to your organization. You know what I mean? It's a totally different way of doing business. So it's big, and I think people see AI sometimes as just a tool. Most people have experience with ChatGPT or some LLM, and that's it. And they're starting to see these other tools that do other things, AI in Excel and AI in this and that. But the big picture and the time horizon of how that completely changes how everyone does business. I mean, we're at the very beginning of a complete transformation of how everyone does business in the world, in every single way, in every department, and every process. So you really need someone to help you navigate that when you think about it that way.
Yes. Okay. It feels that there is a process that a lot of people don't follow, and they're just jumping for a quick fix to a pain, to a problem, and then something goes the wrong way or it doesn't work out now. And I'm saying that because I've heard that there's a really, really high AI implementation failure rate. And I've heard that from agency owners, I've heard it from a lot of places. And I think there's a lot more studies being done right now because either wrong strategy, or maybe you can tell me a little bit more about that. Like, do you see what is the success when it comes to like AI implementations in businesses?
So they haven't done studies on small and medium-sized businesses.
Got it.
And it might be much easier to have a higher success rate because you don't have nearly as many bottlenecks or red tape with those types of businesses. But the big MIT study was on enterprise level corporate businesses, and it was a 95% failure rate. I mean, that's that's like, okay, so most are failing. And some of the reasons why are some of the things that I already went over. Organization gaps, so not having the frameworks in place for governance, and not having org readiness. There are assessments that you can and should do to make sure, is your organization ready to implement AI? Some of what that means might be education is a really big one. Are you and your employees educated enough to be able to use it properly and safely? And do you have this revenue to even get the strategy in place? There's a lot of different things that go into just being able to start implementing AI properly. And this really applies to, businesses with teams. Like if you're a solopreneur and you have a few people, implement a tool, and see how it goes. Have a strategy, but it's much easier. But on a bigger business level, there's so much that you need to do to really effectively do this. And people definitely kind of rushed into something that they don't understand and can't fully grasp and control yet, which in Silicon Valley, this was like a really big philosophy for a long time is, you fix stuff later. You just gotta go into it and break stuff and then you fix it. That's not as good of an approach when it comes to AI and it comes to your business. You could break stuff that is not fixable. So that's one of the things is readiness, having governance and frameworks in place and strategy. Another one is the problem selection that I briefly touched on before. If you're looking at the wrong problem, that you're just looking for a flashy solution, something that gives you a really quick win, a quick ROI, that's understandable and that's great, but that's not really going to lead to business transformation, and also could be risky as well. And then there is a build trap. So sometimes larger companies, there are very specific problems with specific companies that it's not like a lot of the tools there's not a one size fits all for certain types of processes and solutions that you need. But you need to understand when a custom solution is really needed, because the failure rate for something custom is like twice as much versus using a very specific third-party tool that's designed for your problem and knowing what tool to use, where to use it, how to manage it. So that is something that needs to be assessed. And then the last one we also already touched on, which is the unrealistic expectations. So if you have unrealistic expectations and you think you need to be having this ROI within a few months, you're going to prematurely close that project when you're not seeing that. So you need to understand what to expect. And so, I think how to solve all of that is really just making sure that you have a strategy and a plan, focusing on the actual implementation aspects, not just innovating, but the change management that needs to happen to effectively implement something over time. And then empowering everyone in the company, making sure that employees have the education. So that's the reason why there has been such a high failure rate, because companies haven't done that. There aren't a whole lot of AI consultants out there. It's a fairly, AI has been around forever, but not forever. It's been around for a lot longer than it's been public and within commercial use. And so the few years that it's starting to spread in commercial use, it's still fairly new how businesses are learning how to handle this.
Right. One of the points that you mentioned there, it was around education for employees and what are companies not doing for their employees to be ready to use all these AI tools and go through the AI transformation. With all the clients that you work with, anyone that you're in the AI space, what are some of the skills that employees should develop, or what are some of the skills that CEOs are already looking in their employees when they're hiring?
The particular skills are department specific or job specific. Just as job skills are specific to whatever outcome you're trying to get. There is an element, I think, at the moment where most people are still at kind of a basic use of AI. I think once it gets more integrated into people's daily lives and it'll be more normal, just like people using phones and the internet, all of that will become more normal. Right now, people do need the basics. They need, prompt engineering, and then that goes into context engineering, basics of what AI is, the different types of AI, how to properly use it, some of the things we were talking about with, settings, safety, all of these conversations that a lot of people, if you're not in tech, you don't really think about or talk about data a lot. That's going to be a foundational thing to understand no matter what department you're in the business, is what data are we collecting, how are we collecting it, how are we storing it, how are we feeding it into whatever AI system we have. So that's going to be a foundational thing. But then on top of that, then you have your job specific AI tools, and understanding. Really, all of this kind of boils down to a paradigm shift in the way that we think, whether it's a CEO or anyone in the executive level or an employee. It's kind of like when I was younger, I had to remember, I can Google this question. It's just a different way of thinking. So now it's thinking, how do I partner with AI? How do I use AI to do the end goal? And you have to be really careful, because it's really not about AI replacing anything. Automation will help you replace repetitive tasks. AI is more than that. And there's certain places that you might want to use it, certain places that you don't. And it really depends on the people that are working in your company. It depends on them. You need to have the conversations with them. What is it that they feel is their most valuable traits that they're bringing to the company? And then you have AI come alongside them in that. And so, tools is one thing, but I think a foundational understanding of AI is something everyone needs. And then how to use AI within each department. There needs to be education and workshops that help with each department, because it is department specific. And that is only, I think, 20 to 30% really of the learning. 70% of it is actually the day-to-day use within the company. And that's where the change management comes into play. So all of that is super, super important. You know, your employees, your people, that's your company. And they all should be using AI and they shouldn't be afraid of it. Part of it as well is for the company and the people in the company to embrace AI is to understand it and to understand that they're upskilling and they're changing the way that they work, but not to feel fear towards it because you're not going to embrace something that you're afraid of, right? And that understanding will eliminate fears. So that is a huge thing that organizations should be empowering education for their employees. If they don't have someone specifically in AI, like a consultant, because I do workshops for companies. I think that's like one of the most foundational things to do for companies. But if you can't have someone specifically come in and do a workshop that is specific to your company and your company's processes and all of that, you can go to somewhere like Udemy Business. They have a lot of different AI courses and they have personalized learning that they're starting to come out with for AI. So there's some other types of solutions that you can look for that are a little bit more broad for your employees' education. But you know, continued education is important. Specifically right now, it's kind of pivotal for businesses to succeed, for their employees to understand AI. And I think that another important point to this is that just having your employees learn and understand AI is not going to translate automatically to transformation of your business or to AIifying your business. You still really need that ownership piece. You need somebody that is owning AI in your business and that has strategy and governance. That then everything that the employees are learning will integrate into that. But if they're just arbitrarily learning AI and learning different tools and, oh, I'll bring this tool into what I'm doing, that's not cohesive at all. You know, if you're not really measuring things, you don't have a plan, what is that? You know, you're just going to bring in a tool. Okay, maybe it kind of helps this one person, but that's, you know, you're introducing risks for what at that point, you know? So anyway, I definitely advise people to have the education piece, but make sure that it's integrated with a central plan and purpose.
Right. And so some of the stuff that you mentioned here at the end, it was that, you know, it's okay for people to use AI. It's not really how it was maybe like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Employees use it. There's nothing bad in it. It makes the life and everything a lot easier. And you're saying that is not really an AI transformation just because there is I don't know 50 people that use ChatGPT to polish their emails. Maybe you've introduced Copilot or something like that, and that is not a AI transformation or being an AI first. Can you walk us through or kind of paint a better picture of what is an AI first company? Because there's a lot of, you know, AI tools and businesses that are AI tools, but what is truly an AI first company?
Well, I would actually go further to say that it's not only not AI first, but it's very risky. So there's something that we refer to as shadow AI, which is when there's unauthorized tools that employees are using within the company and there isn't any kind of governance around it. That introduces risks. So you might have employees that are using whatever different tools, putting company data into these tools, and there is no security around it because there's no education, you know, around how to properly use these tools and integrate it into your system. You know, you should have secure systems around any AI that you use within your company. So being AI first, I think really means just to lead with an AI centered strategy, whatever strategy you already have in your company. Whatever value you're trying to bring to the market, whatever value drivers you have, all of that now needs to be also integrated with AI in mind. And that comes out with, you know, you see that happening in the AI transformation and implementation. But if you just have some employees that are using AI, you know, that's definitely not really an AI-fied company. That's, you know, people are using different tools. Tools are exciting and awesome, and you see some of the potentials of AI, and it's a great intro for people. And on an individual level, for an individual person to be using ChatGPT and LLMs, all of that is great. But even on an individual level, there's security risks. We had when ChatGPT all of a sudden, there's different answers coming up in Google, right? There's certain things that people need to understand. What is it, first of all, because it's, as a model, will give you confidently wrong information as well. So you have employees using it in a business, they think it's helping them, but they don't understand its limitations. So all of a sudden you're getting not the best information because you're using it to replace your knowledge and your autonomy rather than come alongside you as a collaborator. There's also a lot of misunderstanding there where it can actually be leading you down the wrong path and give you wrong information very confidently. So
I, I've seen that so many times. We would have a call with a client. We're going over some messages, and I have one client, notorious. We would have a strategy to change some of the messages that we're using for the LinkedIn outreach that we're doing. I get like 7 pages. Here are some ideas. I'm like, are you sure these are some ideas? Because this is 7. Did you sit and wrote? Like, this is ridiculous, man. I'm not going to read 7 pages because half of these are not applicable to your business. I'm like, just read what it says. This is not for you. This is for a completely different business. And once you started kind of going down the path, at the end, usually the call is like, wow, man, that's like, I was going in the opposite direction, and I was like feeling like super pumped because the ChatGPT or whatever it was saying like, this is the right thing. Do you want me to give you this answer? Do you want me to give you this? And I kept saying yes, yes, yes. I'm like, but did you stop and read it? Or it was just so much information that looks really nice. You took it and you brought it to a meeting that you wanted to send this to your potential clients. Like, this is not going to work out at all. Do you see a lot of hallucinations when it comes to like the creative side? Or do you see that when it comes into an automation and a process that the AI will not follow the process as it was kind of put into place and kind of veers off into its own thing?
hallucinations aren't as big of a problem when it comes to automation and process, because automation is not the same as AI. You're not going to have hallucinations in automation unless you design an automation with an AI functionality. It's not as much so when you're dealing with like a language model versus an image or video model, because there's just so many more touch points with those models. But ultimately, the limitations are understanding that sometimes you need a certain aspect of hallucination depending on what you're doing, right? Like you're setting a bar of how much hallucination do you want, and it's never 0 and it's never 100. It's what is the word that I'm looking for? It's on a spectrum. So AI, I mean, it's modeled after humans, and so some of the like creativity and imagination is necessary for it to function in the way that we've designed it to function. But inherently, then you have risks and biases. It's interesting. Some people don't think that AI has biases. Of course it does. It's trained on human data, So understanding that it has biases and hallucinations. It's not bad that it has biases and hallucinations. I mean, ideally, there would be no biases or hallucinations in the universe, but as humans and how we understand and observe the universe, it by nature is going to have that, same as us. So just understanding that, I think, is a really important point. It's not about trying to eradicate all biases and hallucinations. It's about understanding that they exist and then navigating with this thought partner or tech partner, understanding that we both have biases and understanding how to fact check things that it gives me, understanding where it's coming from, what data is it trained on. So I think those are important points.
And it's interesting how you said, like, think of it as a spectrum of how much hallucination you want to see, and it's never a 0 or 100, but it does have a level of hallucination because you're asking it to be creative based on stuff that it can find when it comes to what is available out there. Now, if we go down that rabbit hole, there was a conversation I had with someone that they said, is it becoming diluted water where AI writes something that is written by AI, and then it's said in a spoken form that is another one, and then that is taken into a video, and then that video is taken into a blog, and that blog is then created into a PR piece, and then does it get to a point where it's so diluted that the AI is reading and writing and creating another content that is from AI, and we get to a point where how does that future even look like?
Yes, I love these subjects and these types of conversations. Yes, that's happening. What I would say or what I would ask is, how is that different than humans? Because realistically, most of the time, what do? We repeat things that other people have said. And even if we interject critical thinking within those things, that's kind of the way that we share information, the way that we learn, the way that we evolve and grow and share is through a lot of that repetition over time. AI just does it way faster and at a way higher level. Now, because it does it so much faster and at such a higher level, when you get into, it depends on like, I guess where the issue is, is the issue that we're having all kinds of repetitive information that's coming from AI and then produced by AI and becomes cyclical. Is the issue in marketing? It's like, okay, well, we can't have proper like SEO or AI SEO, if we've got all of this content that's just AI generated, and a lot of the platforms are dealing with that issue right now. For businesses on a higher level, it has to do with truth. It has to do with what's actually true. If we have all of this information that's just being repeated, then how do we know what to listen to? And this is something that I think was an issue when the internet came out, right? And when social media became a thing, and now it's just so exacerbated with AI content. But I think that it brings light to another point, which is to me, which is that we've always had that as humans. Something that goes viral, it means a bunch of humans shared that thing without a whole lot of critical thinking involved. They were just like, yes, want to share it, so that's something that I think we've already had a lot of. Now with AI, it's going to bring light to the issue, so maybe we'll be able to deal with it differently. But at the end of the day, a lot of these conversations, I think it's not as much about, oh, this is bad or wrong, or it's how do we apply the understanding of it to be useful. So we understand that there's going to be a lot of AI content that comes out. So now with that understanding, how do we move forward effectively and still do what we're trying to do with our end goals? That's really the question. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's going to be a whole lot of AI content. There's going to be a whole lot more, I think, false content with AI for people, again, who don't understand AI. And I think that's why the education is so important. We should be teaching AI in schools. This should be something where if somebody sees a video, they can understand the difference between an AI video, all of the little things that show what a video is generated by AI versus not. And that changes, right? That changes almost weekly with how good the models are becoming at generating fake images and videos. But there's a lot of things that are going viral that aren't real. We've had things in the past, stories and non-truths that go viral that aren't real, but now it's just to such a bigger extent that I think, one, it brings awareness to people that we need to understand that not everything you see online is true. We've already heard that for a very long time, but now more so. So on an individual level, people need to study that and understand that. And on a business level, we just need to know how to properly integrate these new challenges in the online world. Like you have to mark if something is this is part of the transparency piece in those 5 pillars, part of the transparency, which is now required in Europe. And in America, we don't have laws around it yet. We have some some regulatory bodies that suggest things, right? But we don't have laws around it. In Europe, they do now, where you have to be transparent if something is generated with AI. All of those things are currently right now the conversation in law development. So it's ever evolving, and companies also have to be aware of new regulatory things that come up within wherever their jurisdiction is. So this is another point. So when you're integrating AI, when you are creating AI content, you need to make sure that you understand what's allowed and what's not allowed. AI voice agents for sales is a huge thing now. There's different laws for doing text blasts, in different parts of the country. There's a lot of things that people need to be aware of when they're using these technologies.
It feels more calming the way that you presented it, because it's very true. Like if you think about, like, let's say 7-8 years ago, if you read a blog and you want to do better SEO, the skyscraper strategy was take the best blog, tweak and change it. And then we had different tools that would kind of put it through like a Tumblr, like a thesaurus kind of way, change the words and the synonyms and whatnot. Again, it's a person taking something that someone else wrote, that person took it for someone else. So when you say like, we've been doing that with people, now that you see it faster at a bigger scale, it just feels a little bit more scary. But is it really that different from what we were doing? Now, what I would like to ask you is like one of the final questions. What does the future look like? You're on the forefront of all these things. You see them happening faster than most of us. What do you see as 2026 and beyond? What does the future look like for businesses with AI?
Whew. An impossible question. There's so many narratives that I hear from all of the leaders in the space regarding the future, and most of it is fear-driven, because that's what gets clicks, that's what gets shares, right? Is some of the fear-driven stuff of, by 2026 or 2027, we're gonna have no jobs and everything's gonna be, and the thing is, usually it's a balance. Usually it's like a little bit of both. The truth is always it's not sensational, but it is true that things are changing faster than we've ever seen before because of this tech boom. It is true that there is going to be a lot of job displacement. We're already seeing it, There's a lot of truth to these things, but also the truth is change is uncomfortable. Change is hard. Change can lead to a much better future. It's in how we manage the change and how we use the change, which is why I'm really excited to be part of this conversation and part of this place in tech right now, because it's very exciting. There's a lot of amazing things we can do, but we have to be intentional about how we direct the change. Rather than job displacement, we can have employee upskilling. We can have businesses moving much faster and doing much better. I just today learned about a new technology from DeepSeek that helps drug development like 100 times faster than we had it before by using AI modeling, right? There's all of these amazing things that are going to come out, but then it's, who has power over them? How are we managing these things? And it all kind of boils down to, do we have human-centric values? So the reality is, the next 2 to 5 years, especially in the next decade, everything is going to look very, very different. Things are going to change. And it has to do with how we manage that, where we put ourselves within these changes. And I think the biggest thing over all of it is understanding we've already been through lots of changes. My whole life, I'm 32 years old, my whole life has been, I was born the year that the internet became a thing, right? Like we've already gone through lots of changes. Change is nothing new to humans. Humans are very adaptive, and we will adapt. Jobs will look different. The way that we do business will look different, but we will adapt. And I think part of that adapting is making sure that people understand AI, understand how to use it, and understand how it's going to be integrated in their lives and in their businesses. And that understanding piece will eliminate a lot of the fears. But it can be seen as a very, very exciting time But we really need the ethics conversations around all of these different tools and technologies coming out, because it could end up not great. We've got companies that are very, very powerful that are rushing towards something that they can't control and don't fully understand. And that can be very risky. When you don't have the proper, of course it's very risky, right? If you don't have the proper guardrails around it. So same for any individual company, you do need AI, but you need to not be racing towards something that you don't understand or don't have any controls or guardrails or frameworks around. So exciting time, but be vigilant and understand some of the ethics and risk implications around what you're doing, and just make sure that you're moving forward in an intelligent way. You still need to use your mind. Don't let ChatGPT or an LLM replace your own autonomy and thought process. It needs to be a partner. It should not be something that replaces your critical thinking.
Right, right. I always compare it with when Google was collecting all kinds of data. There was no guardrails. Like you just click accept, like you just like everything is taken. Facebook,
Right.
like it was just crazy. So this is why I'm like, we learned from that experience. Hopefully now we would faster. We will put the places that maybe some stuff is should be controlled much better than back in those days. Now, Amanda, if someone listens to this whole thing, is like, wow, this is fantastic. I want to do all these things, and she sounds like the right person. How do people get a hold of you to work with you?
So my website is www.ethosai.solutions.com. It's at Ethos AI Solutions on all of the socials. And yeah, it's just reach out and we can have a chat. Ultimately, I really want to bring these conversations to businesses and apply it to, you hear the word future proofing a lot, and I've used it as well in my own marketing. Future proof your business, right? The reality is it's not really future proofing anymore. We're all trying to catch up and then keep up. So the reality is it's no longer the future, right? It's very much here. And we really need to be diligent with this new technology to make sure that our businesses survive. And I really want to be a part of helping mission-driven businesses be able to continue to provide value and impact the world and their communities in whatever way that they're doing. So
Amazing, Amanda. Appreciate the time. Thank you for sharing all these things with us, and wish you all the success in a more ethical AI.
thank you so much.